Smoke still rose from the blackened remains of Fort Nixa. The sky was filled with ashes and silent wreckage. Pieces of human ships floated through space, broken and lifeless. The battle had ended just hours ago. Zarnak Commander Threx stood proudly on the bridge of his battleship, looking at the destruction below. His yellow eyes narrowed with satisfaction. He had done what no alien commander had ever done. He had crushed a human defense point. It was his greatest victory. His crew cheered. Behind him, the screens showed images of destroyed tanks, collapsed buildings, and lifeless bodies. No movement, no resistance. "We have done it," Threx declared. "Earth has lost this sector. Humanity is finally learning its place." Other Zarnak ships moved through the ruins, scanning for survivors, but found none. They reported back to Threx. "Only dead bodies, Commander. Not a single signal from human forces." Threx smiled wider. "Good. Let the galaxy see this. Let them know who rules now." But deep under the rubble of Fort Nixa, in a collapsed corridor, a sound echoed, faint breathing. A figure, covered in dust and blood, pushed broken metal off his body. His helmet was cracked, and his oxygen was low. But he was alive. Slowly, painfully, he stood. His body hurt. Every step felt like fire, but he moved forward. His name was Scout Wraith 17. He was part of a deep recon unit, sent to observe, not to fight. His job was to report, not engage. And that was exactly what he was going to do. He looked up at the burning sky. Zarnak ships hovered above like vultures. They thought it was over. They thought he was dead. But Wraith 17 wasn't done yet. He activated his emergency transmitter, but it was damaged. No signal. His backup system had limited power. It could not reach Earth from this deep inside the wreckage. He needed to move, get to higher ground, find a working relay tower. He checked his supplies, half a water pouch, one stim injector, and a knife. His rifle was gone. His armor was cracked, but his will was unbroken. He began to walk. Outside, the Zarnak soldiers were busy collecting data. They downloaded files from destroyed human terminals, laughed at the primitive technology, and sent mocking messages to the Galactic Council. "The humans are finished," they said. "They are not as strong as they claimed." In the command center, Threx started a live broadcast to his people. Behind him were images of flames and smoke. "We have defeated Earth's finest. This was their stronghold. Now it is nothing. Soon, all human planets will fall." His voice echoed across systems. The galaxy watched and cheered. Other alien races who had once feared humans began to speak loudly again. They shared jokes, old insults, and memories of when humans had been arrogant. "Now look at them," they said, crushed and silent. But Wraith 17 kept walking. He climbed through ruins, slipped past enemy patrols, and marked their positions. Every movement he made was careful. He stayed in the shadows, never making a sound. His training kept him alive. His mission kept him moving. At night, he hid inside a ruined tunnel and recorded everything he had seen. Enemy fleet consists of 12 major ships, dozens of support vessels. Ground patrols are active. Comms are open. No cloaking tech detected. Major supply drops expected in 48 hours. He saved the file in his chip. Once he reached a relay tower, the data would go straight to Earth. That data could save thousands of lives. He slept for only 1 hour. Pain kept him awake. But so did the fire in his heart. This was not the end. This was the beginning. The next morning, he reached the edge of the battlefield. A large hill covered in burnt trees stood in the distance. At the top of that hill was an old human comm tower. If he could reach it, he could transmit the data. But the hill was crawling with Zarnak scouts. Drones buzzed in the air. A wrong step meant death. He waited. He studied their movement. He timed their patrols. Then, when the wind blew strongest, carrying ash and dust, he ran. His legs screamed, his side bled, but he didn't stop. He reached the base of the tower and crawled inside through a broken vent. The inside was dark and full of debris. The main panel was damaged, but the backup core was still glowing faintly. He connected his chip, used the last of his power cell, and activated the relay. The screen blinked once, twice, then turned green. The message was sent. And far away, in a dark command room on Earth's moon base Echo, an officer read the signal. Her eyes widened. "He's alive," she whispered, "and he sent full recon." Admiral Reyes stepped forward, looked at the map that had just updated. "So, they think it's over," he said. "But this was just a scout." He turned to his staff. "Prepare the fleet. Quietly. No announcements, no signals. Let the Zarnak enjoy their fake victory a little longer." Back on the hill, Wraith 17 collapsed under the tower. His job was done, for now. But the real storm was coming. The wind howled through the empty canyons of Fort Nixa's ruins. Buildings were broken, towers were shattered, fire still burned in corners of the crushed base. No one was left, except for one silent figure moving slowly through the wreckage. Wraith 17, the human scout, walked with a limp, his arm held close to his body. Blood had dried on his suit. His helmet was cracked, but he still wore it. The Zarnak hadn't seen him. Not yet. Every step hurt. His left leg felt like it was broken, but he didn't stop. He had sent the message. Earth had received it. Now he needed to survive long enough to escape or give more intel. Wraith 17 wasn't a hero. He was trained to go unseen, to move through shadows, to observe and report. But now he was all that was left in this sector. That made him something else. That made him dangerous. Zarnak patrols moved through the ruins. Drones scanned the wreckage for any signs of life, but they weren't careful anymore. They thought the battle was over. They didn't expect survivors, especially not human scouts. Wraith 17 used that overconfidence. He hid in the dark corners, crawled through collapsed ducts, and slid past. Patrols without a sound. He reached an old human supply tunnel, one that connected Fort Nixa to an abandoned outpost in the rocky hills nearby. The tunnel was mostly intact. Dust covered the walls. Lights flickered weakly. But there was no enemy presence here. It was too far from their command zone. Wraith 17 entered the tunnel and rested for a few minutes. He took off his glove and injected a stim into his arm. The pain dropped a little. His heartbeat slowed. He ate a protein bar and drank the last of his water. It wasn't much, but it would keep him going. Then he opened his portable map. It was damaged, half the screen cracked, but he could still see the route. The next relay tower was over 10 kilometers away, built into a cliff on the eastern ridge. The path wasn't easy. There would be no cover, no tunnels, just open terrain. But it was his only option. He moved again, slowly, carefully. The stim gave him strength, but not speed. He stayed low, used the rocks for cover, and avoided open spaces. In the sky, alien drones flew in lazy circles, watching nothing in particular. The Zarnak were confident, too confident. He crossed a burnt forest, trees turned to ash, animals gone, silence everywhere. Once he paused under the remains of a crashed dropship. Inside, he found the bodies of other scouts, his team, his brothers and sisters in armor. He took a deep breath, knelt by them, and closed their visors. He didn't have time for more, but he whispered quietly, "I'll make it count." As night came, the air grew cold. Alien searchlights passed overhead, scanning the hills. Wraith 17 pressed himself into the ground, barely breathing. One drone stopped right above him. Its scanner hummed. For a moment, he thought it would find him. But then a gust of ash blew across the field, and the drone moved on. He waited a full 5 minutes before moving again. Hours passed. His suit's oxygen filter blinked red. He had maybe 2 hours left. His hands shook from blood loss. Still, he kept moving. He reached a narrow canyon, its walls high and jagged. Somewhere inside was the relay tower. He just had to reach it. Suddenly a sound. Metal feet. Zarnak soldiers were ahead, a small patrol scanning the area. Wraith 17 ducked behind a rock and checked his gear. One knife, a flare, no guns. He couldn't fight them head-on. He needed a distraction. He picked up a small piece of wreckage, clicked his flare, and tossed both toward the left side of the canyon. The flare lit up the sky for a second, just long enough to draw their attention. The soldiers rushed toward it, weapons ready. In that moment, Wraith 17 ran the other way. He found the entrance to the relay station, half buried under rock. He pushed aside debris, crawled inside, and sealed the hatch behind him. The station was cold and dark. Power was low, but it was still functional. He connected his suit to the system. The screen blinked. New coordinates, new orders. Earth had received his earlier message. Now they wanted more. He wasn't just a survivor now. He was the eye of Earth's war machine. He began uploading what he had seen. Enemy ship formations, patrol schedules, drop zones, and weak points. Every detail mattered. Every second he stayed alive meant Earth was gaining more power. Then a quiet voice spoke in his helmet. "Scout Wraith 17, this is Moon Base Echo. Data received. You did good. Reinforcements are coming. Hold position if possible. Extraction may be arranged." He smiled faintly. His voice cracked as he replied, "Copy that." Outside the canyon, the Zarnak patrol found nothing but a burning flare. Confused, they returned to base. And high above, just beyond sensor range, a small black ship with no signal signature drifted closer. The scout had walked through fire and silence. Now, Earth was walking back with him. Across the stars, the Zarnak Empire celebrated. Their warships glided through space, flags raised high. Their soldiers danced in the great halls of command ships. News channels repeated the message again and again. Fort Nixa has fallen. Earth is silent. The galaxy listened. Species that once feared humans now raised their voices again. Mocking songs played on alien stations. Old jokes about weak humans returned. Drinks were poured. Victory speeches echoed from one world to the next. On the Zarnak homeworld, the streets were filled with cheers. Statues were lit with lights. Children waved mini-war banners. Commander Threx's face appeared on massive screens, his voice calm and proud. "We have destroyed the last human defense. In this region, Fort Nixa is no more. Earth has retreated. The battle is over. The war will soon follow." Other galactic powers watched carefully. The Kolari, the Drixen, the Mavari, all of them had feared humanity's sudden rise in the past. They had seen Earth push back enemy after enemy. But now, they saw defeat, and they began to forget their fear. A Mavari diplomat laughed on a news channel, saying, "Maybe humans weren't so special after all." In orbit above the ruined base, Zarnak engineers continued gathering human tech. They moved slowly, with no urgency. There was no resistance, no danger. Everything looked quiet. Every destroyed bunker they found confirmed their belief. Earth was finished here. But far away, hidden in the cold darkness near Earth's moon, Moonbase Echo was alive and focused. No cheering, no lights, just screens, data, and silence. In the center room, Admiral Reyes stood with his officers, eyes fixed on a glowing map. Dots moved across the screen. Zarnak ships, updated patrol paths, weak points. All thanks to one person. "Wraith 17 delivered everything," said the comms officer. "Enemy formation, fleet composition, fuel depot coordinates. We even got surface troop patterns." She paused, then added, "They don't know we're watching them." Admiral Reyes nodded. Let them enjoy their celebration. They think, the scout was just a survivor. But he's the reason they're exposed. We don't need to rush. We just need to choose the right moment. Are we going to attack? Another officer asked. Not yet, Reyes replied. First, we teach them fear again. He turned to the strategy board. A hologram of Fort Nixa spun slowly, showing enemy ship locations. Behind it, a second layer lit up, new recon units already en route. Human tech ships, camouflaged and silent, moved like shadows. Earth wasn't dead. Earth was watching. Meanwhile, on a diplomatic channel, a message arrived from the Zarnak Empire. It was bold and smug. Earth is invited to surrender peacefully. Continued resistance will only bring more destruction. The Earth diplomat didn't reply. Instead, she quietly forwarded the message to Reyes, who simply smiled and said, "They have no idea." In the ruins of Fort Nixa, Scout Wraith 17 remained hidden. He had set up a temporary signal repeater in a broken comms tower. The wind howled outside, but he didn't move. He listened to the enemy, tapped into their signals, and sent quiet updates to Earth. He knew his part wasn't over. Every whisper he heard gave Earth more strength. He watched as Zarnak soldiers became lazy. Their scouts stopped searching. Patrols grew smaller. Even their officers began relaxing, standing out in the open, laughing about the end of human power. Wraith 17 recorded all of it, but inside his heart, he burned with a quiet fire. He knew what was coming. The Zarnak were writing their own doom, line by line, with every careless move. And Earth was waiting with a pen dipped in steel. The Galactic Council gathered to discuss the post-human era. They believed the balance of power was shifting. The Human Alliance seat was now considered empty. An Alex ambassador said, "Let us divide Earth's former regions peacefully." But someone interrupted the meeting. A single message, short and without any name. "We're not done." That message came from Wraith 17. It was sent through a low-frequency relay no one had used in years. By the time they tracked it, the sender had vanished from the system. Panic began to spread in quiet corners of the galaxy. Some alien leaders remembered how Earth had responded in the past. Fast, brutal, and without warning. Others ignored the signal, thinking it was a last weak attempt to show strength. In the dark hangars of Earth's hidden fleet, engines began to hum. No lights flashed, no sirens blared, just quiet, focused movement. Technicians worked without speaking. Pilots sat in cockpits with serious faces. Orders were given in whispers. This was not a war cry. This was a quiet storm rising. Admiral Reyes stood at the center of Command Room Alpha aboard the carrier EHS Vengeance. His eyes were fixed on the hologram floating before him. Fort Nixa's map, updated every 10 minutes by Scout Wraith 17. "They think the battle is over," he said calmly. "Let's begin by reminding them what a real war feels like." The officers nodded. Earth's counterstrike was not a full invasion, not yet. It would start with precision. They called it Operation Needlepoint. The plan was to hit only the most vital points: fuel stations, communication towers, radar systems, and vanish before the enemy could respond. Quick, quiet, lethal. Meanwhile, the Zarnak continued celebrating. On the planet Vortax, the Zarnak governor gave a public speech. "Humanity is done," he said. "There will be no more threats from Earth. Let the galaxy move forward without fear." The crowd roared. News channels across star systems replayed it every hour. But only a few hours later, something strange happened. A Zarnak fuel depot on the edge of Sector 12 went dark, completely offline. No alarms, no distress call, just silence. When a patrol ship arrived to investigate, they found nothing. The station was gone. No wreckage, no bodies, just a hole in the sky, and one message, etched into the wall of a nearby asteroid. "Still watching." Zarnak commanders called it sabotage, a technical failure. Pirates, maybe. But deep down, some began to feel a familiar chill. Something was wrong. Then another depot vanished, this one on a high-gravity planet. Again, no warning, no survivors. A single drone camera caught a blur, a ship so fast it didn't match any known profile, black hull, no signal. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. At Fort Nixa, soldiers started walking with more caution. Drones were launched more often. Patrols doubled, yet nothing changed. Everything seemed normal. That's what made it worse, because Wraith 17 was still there. Hidden in the ruins, he watched them become more paranoid. He listened to their fear growing. He recorded it all and sent it back to Earth. Every whisper, every rumor, every moment of hesitation. It was working. They were starting to doubt. And then, Earth made its next move. A massive Zarnak warship docked at a spaceport near the edge of the battle zone. It had just arrived from a victory parade and carried many high-ranking officers. At exactly Odo 200 hours, the ship exploded. Not from outside, but from inside. Someone had planted devices in its engine core. All escape pods were disabled. The Zarnak response was chaos. Messages flew across channels. Who did this? How did they get inside? Was it an old human survivor? Some commanders even blamed each other. Panic spread through their lines like fire through dry grass. Earth sent nothing but silence. No threats, no answers, just attacks that felt like ghosts. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, a sudden shift happened. Representatives of smaller species, those who had once allied with Earth, started asking questions. What if the humans are not finished? Should we really be celebrating this soon? A nervous ambassador from the Freen race stood and said, "We have seen this before. When Earth is quiet, it is only preparing." But others still mocked. They called it fear-talking. There's no proof, no open war, just whispers. That same night, across 10 different systems, 10 different Zarnak listening posts went offline at the exact same second, and in the ashes of Fort Nixa, Wraith 17 moved once more. He left his old hiding spot and entered a half-buried tunnel that used to be part of the command center. There, he found something critical, an old backup server containing enemy comm logs and ship route maps. It was untouched. The Zarnak hadn't even realized it was there. Carefully, he connected his system, downloaded the files, and sent them home. The data included a list of all Zarnak fleet deployments in the region, and one terrifying truth. The enemy was planning to attack a human colony on the Outer Rim in just 3 days. A peaceful planet, no defenses. Wraith 17 sent the warning, instantly. At Moonbase Echo, alarms finally sounded. Not out of panic, but readiness. Earth's hand had been forced. They had to act. Admiral Reyes didn't hesitate. Move the fleet, protect the colony, hit their rear lines. They thought they were hunting us. Now, it's our turn. But Earth's war machine had already started moving. Hidden fleets powered up. New weapons were activated. A dozen cloaked ships moved out of the asteroid field. Stealth drones were launched toward the Zarnak fuel depots. None of these events were announced. None of them made a sound. Earth wasn't coming to ask for peace. Earth was preparing to remind the galaxy why they had been feared in the first place. In a quiet moment before sunrise, Wraith 17 looked out from the cliff near the broken tower. He saw enemy ships flying above unaware. He touched the Earth badge on his cracked armor and whispered, "Let them laugh now. They won't be laughing for long." And as the sun rose over the battlefield, a shadow passed overhead. A small black drone, shaped like a hawk, flew across the sky, unseen, quiet, and deadly. The celebration had started, but it was all based on a lie. And far from the command room, deep in space, dozens of black ships broke formation and vanished into faster-than-light travel. For the Zarnak, the shift had begun. The celebration was over. The silence was ending. And somewhere, in a crumbling tower surrounded by death and ash, Wraith 17 whispered to himself, "Now they'll learn what it means to wake a ghost." Zarnak Command was in chaos. One by one, systems were going dark. Listening posts stopped responding. Fuel. Depots vanished. Patrols disappeared without sending distress calls. And worst of all, no one knew how. No enemy ships were spotted. No battle reports came in. Just silence. Commander Threx slammed his fist on the war table. "Where are the humans?" he roared. "They're ghosts! Shadows! This is impossible!" But it wasn't impossible. It was Earth. Scout Wraith 17 had lit the fire, and now the flames were spreading. His final report, warning about the planned attack on the human colony, had reached Earth just in time. Earth's shadow fleet had launched, and they didn't come to talk. They came to hunt. At the edge of the outer rim, the peaceful colony of Vera 9 prepared for evacuation. Families were loaded onto transport ships. Young children cried. Farmers left their fields behind. They had no weapons, just fear. The Zarnak assault fleet was already on its way, unaware that something was waiting for them. Above the colony's orbit, the sky shimmered. Out of the void came 12 black Earth ships, silent, cloaked, deadly. These weren't large war cruisers. They were smaller, faster, and designed for ambush. Their hulls absorbed radar. Their engines made no noise. They were Earth's answer to arrogance. They waited, and then the Zarnak fleet arrived. Confident, loud, arrogant. 20 ships, flashing lights, and broadcasting victory tunes. They laughed as they approached the colony, ready to strike at a world they believed was unguarded. But the moment they entered orbit, Earth's ships attacked. Not with warnings, not with speeches, just fire. Missiles struck the lead Zarnak ship before it could react. Explosions tore through its engines. 2 more followed. Laser-guided weapons hit weak points, places only someone with deep intel could know, places only Wraith 17 would have mapped. Within seconds, 5 Zarnak ships were gone. The rest tried to regroup, but Earth's fleet moved like wolves, circling, striking, vanishing into the dark. Their ships didn't stay in one place. They weaved through wreckage, used the enemy's own debris as cover. Zarnak soldiers screamed over comms. "Where are they? I can't lock on!" "They're everywhere! Shields down! Shields!" And then silence. The battle lasted just 7 minutes. When it ended, all 20 Zarnak ships were destroyed. Earth's fleet didn't stop to collect trophies. They didn't stay for applause. They left just as quickly as they came, leaving the stunned colony safe and whole. In the ruins of the Zarnak flagship, a message blinked on a cracked screen. 1 sentence in simple human language. This was a warning. Back on the Zarnak homeworld, panic truly began. Emergency meetings were called. High Command locked themselves in war rooms. The Council demanded answers. How did Earth attack without detection? How did they know our fleet's weak spots? How did they strike and disappear? No one had answers. But one name started to spread. Wraith 17, though the Zarnak had believed him dead, whispers told another story. That a human scout had survived the fall of Fort Nixa, that he had stayed behind, that he had watched, listened, and sent everything back to Earth. Some called it impossible, just a myth. But others, especially those who had fought humans before, knew better. Humans didn't give up, and their scouts didn't die easily. At a secret Zarnak command base, Commander Threx stood before a wall of data, the dots showing. Earth's movements made no pattern, no formation. It was chaos, and somehow that made it worse. "They're not fighting like before," his officer said. "They're not sending fleets. They're sending messages." "Yes," Threx whispered, "and the message is fear. He turned to his team. "Find this Wraith 17, kill him, or the war is already lost." But Wraith 17 was already gone, after transmitting the last of his intel. He had slipped through the mountains near Fort Nixa. His body was broken. His suit was damaged. But he moved with one purpose: to reach the extraction point Earth had sent him. For 3 days, he crawled through frozen hills and ash plains. He hid during the day, moved at night, ate whatever he could find. Pain was constant, hunger sharper, but he didn't stop. And finally, on the 4th night, a low hum echoed across the valley. A sleek black shuttle descended from the sky, lights dimmed, engines quiet. The hatch opened, and a soldier stepped out. She saluted. "Scout Wraith 17, he nodded once. "Welcome home." He collapsed in her arms. Back aboard EHS Vengeance, Admiral Reyes received the report. Scout recovered. "He's alive. Barely, but alive." Reyes stood silently. He did what armies couldn't. He broke their mind. All across the galaxy, the shift continued. Aliens who had mocked Earth grew quiet. Old allies of humanity reactivated treaties. The Galactic Council canceled celebrations. Fear, once forgotten, returned to the stars, not because of fleets, not because of weapons, but because of one broken man who had refused to die. And Earth. Earth was just getting started. The galaxy was no longer laughing. Zarnak outposts went silent, one by one. Fuel lines burned. Communication satellites vanished. Patrols reported seeing phantoms in the dark, ships with no signal, no heat, and no sound. And then those patrols vanished too. What began as a single scout's survival had now become something far greater, a full-scale shadow war. Earth didn't send declarations. Earth didn't make demands. Earth sent destruction. From the ashes of Fort Nixa, Scout Wraith 17 had given humanity everything they needed: enemy supply routes, ship blueprints, weaknesses, even command schedules. Admiral Reyes and the Earth fleet turned this information into a weapon. And now that weapon was slicing through the Zarnak Empire. Above the volcanic moon of Track 7, a massive Zarnak refinery stood protected by defense rings and 4 capital ships. It had fueled the war for years. But on a cold, silent night, the guards noticed something odd. All their security systems went offline. Seconds later, explosions rocked the moon's surface. Black drones slipped through shield cracks. Defense systems didn't even have time to activate. Within 4 minutes, the entire refinery burned. Before it collapsed, a single Zarnak worker managed to send a video of what he saw: Earth's emblem, painted in red on a passing drone. The galaxy watched that footage in silence. On the human side, no cheers rang out. There were no victory speeches. Earth wasn't fighting for glory. They were fighting to make a point. "You should have never thought." We were finished. In a quiet base on Mars, Wraith 17 lay in a recovery pod. His body was broken, ribs cracked, internal bleeding slow to stop. But his mind remained sharp. Doctors said he might never walk again. He didn't care. "I gave them the match," he whispered. "They lit the fire." He spent his time watching. War feeds from orbit. One by one, the Zarnak were being pushed back, not by overwhelming numbers, but by precise, untraceable strikes. Their biggest ships were left drifting in space with no engines. Their admirals found dead in their own stations. Drones had slipped through vents, undetected. This wasn't a war Earth was winning. It was a war Earth was controlling. In a hidden Galactic Council session, fear grew. A Sithar ambassador said, aloud what many were thinking: "We need to negotiate with Earth." But the Zarnak counselor screamed, "They are savages, terrorists. They strike like cowards." Another voice responded, "Or maybe they just learned not to play fair. Because you didn't." The galaxy was splitting. Some feared Earth. Others respected them. But one thing was clear. No one ignored them anymore. Admiral Reyes now spoke through encrypted channels to former allies. the Mavari, the Drixen, even the cautious Rawl. Old enemies had become new partners. Because now they knew, when Earth fought, they didn't just defend, they punished. And punishment had become routine on Zarnak-controlled world, Zarin Prime, a military academy hosted over 5,000 troops. They were preparing the next generation of soldiers. But one night, every alarm in the building went off. Doors locked, windows sealed, and from above, small packages dropped from orbit, EMPs. Not to kill, but to humiliate. Power was lost for 3 days. When the systems came back, every ship on the ground had, "You started this," burned into the hull with plasma cutters. No one died, but the message was clear. Earth could strike anywhere, anytime, and leave before you could even raise a weapon. The most dangerous thing about humanity now wasn't their technology. It wasn't their soldiers. It wasn't even their ships. It was their patience. Earth waited for the Zarnak to make mistakes. Then they struck. And each time they did, another part of the Empire broke. Back on Mars, Wraith 17 was finally taken out of the recovery pod. His body was weak, but his heart strong. Officers came to see him. Scientists offered medals. He refused all of it. "There's still work to do," he said. "You don't stop a beast with one cut." "You did more than that," said Admiral Reyes, who came to visit personally. "You reminded the galaxy who we are." Wraith 17 smiled, faintly. "They thought I was just a scout." And look what just a scout started. The final blow came weeks later. The capital city of the Zarnak homeworld was hit with a full blackout, caused not by weapons, but by hacked satellites. For 12 hours, their most secure city had no power, no defenses, and no answers. When systems returned, they found their space elevator disabled and one massive human flag floating above their palace. Human forces never touched the ground. They didn't need to. The message had already been burned into every screen. "This is mercy. The next time we won't knock." Zarnak leadership fell into silence. Commanders stopped giving orders. Soldiers stopped showing up. And in the empty halls of Fort Nixa, now retaken by a small Earth team, a message was carved into a stone wall. By Wraith 17 himself. "You thought it was over. It never even began. The stars had forgotten Earth. Now they whispered our name in fear again." Fort Nixa stood silent. Once filled with the proud banners of the Zarnak Empire, now only broken walls and black ash remained. Earth's flag flew in the windless sky, not as a sign of conquest, but as a warning: we are still here. Inside the central tower, Wraith 17 stood on unsteady legs, leaning on a steel cane. His face was pale, body thin, but his eyes were sharp. Soldiers saluted him as he passed, not because of his rank, but because of what he had become, the ghost that shattered an empire. He was just a scout, but now the galaxy knew that a single human, left alone behind enemy lines, could burn the roots of giants. Admiral Reyes watched from the orbiting carrier EHS Vengeance. His fleet floated above the reclaimed fort, silent and ready. "All objectives complete," his officer reported. "Zarnak Empire has officially requested peace talks. No resistance remains in this sector." Reyes didn't smile. "Good. But don't let your guard down. Their pride might return." Below, Earth engineers began rebuilding Fort Nixa, not as a weapon, but as a symbol. The place where the enemy thought victory was complete, where they let their guard down, where they celebrated too early, and where one broken man reminded them of humanity's will. Wraith 17 sat quietly in a corner of the new command room, watching construction begin. A young soldier approached. She had only seen the stories online, had never met him in person. "Is it true," she asked, "that you stayed here alone?" For weeks? He nodded once. And you survived with no backup? Another nod. But how? Her voice was barely a whisper. Wraith 17 looked at her, then pointed to his chest. I didn't survive with strength. I survived with this. He tapped his heart. You can break the body, but not the will. News of Earth's silent war traveled fast. Galactic media, once mocking humans, now spoke of them with caution. Journalists whispered about the Ghost Fleet and their terrifying precision. Alien leaders asked their advisors, how could a species once mocked as primitive do this? The answer was simple. Humanity learned. When the Zarnak attacked Earth years ago, humanity wasn't ready. Their first fleets were crushed, cities were lost, millions died. But Earth didn't surrender. Instead, it went silent. It disappeared into the void, licking its wounds and preparing. They didn't return with louder guns. They returned with better minds and with people like Wraith 17. At the Galactic Council, where representatives from hundreds of species gathered, a new vote was called. Earth had been offered a seat once, long ago, then rejected. Now they were asked again. This time the tone was different. Respect, caution, even fear. The human ambassador entered the chamber and spoke just a single sentence. We have no interest in ruling the stars. But never mistake silence for weakness again. No one interrupted, no one laughed. Back on Fort Nixa, Wraith 17 prepared to leave. His mission was complete. Earth medics urged him to return to Mars for full recovery. He agreed, but before leaving, he carved one last message into a metal plate and bolted it to the command room wall. It read, "They thought it was over. They thought I was just a scout." And beside it, a list of every base, ship, and planet he helped disable during his time alone. 74, all by one man. The new recruits stared at it in awe. As the transport ship lifted off, the stars outside seemed quieter. No Zarnak fleets, no patrols, just space and peace. For now, because Earth hadn't forgotten, and Earth never would. In hidden bases across the solar system, training continued. Engineers worked on new stealth ships. Recruits studied Zarnak battle patterns. AI systems ran endless simulations. Humanity would not wait to be attacked again. They would be ready. In the final moments of his journey back to Mars, Wraith 17 stood at the ship's window, looking down at Earth as it came into view. Blue alive, still standing. A medic beside him asked gently, "Was it worth it? Everything you did? Everything you lost?" He didn't answer right away. Then, with a tired smile, he said, "They thought the battle was over. They thought I was finished. But I was just the beginning. And somewhere far beyond that starry sky, broken pieces of the Zarnak Empire drifted in silence. Reminders of one truth. You can crush a human fleet. You can break their cities. But if you leave even one scout behind, you haven't won. Not yet. Not ever."